Welcome to our first lecture and the explanation of what the fuck is this all about and why are you here? I hope that I can weave in both the physics and the metaphysics into a little snippet of clarity on why this work is important, why are we doing it through the body, and give you some guidelines and some references of what are we actually trying to connect with, like what is this dark matter in essence. And you're welcome to go and do your own research on the science of it on the Wikipedia, or there's beautiful clips on YouTube with all kinds of scientists talking about it, but there isn't a lot of bridging it toward our evolution. And one of the patterns that I've seen scientists take is be reductionist, be very confined to their own box of understanding, and what reality can only be measured, calculated, and proven. Whereas quantum physics and the new astrophysics has really allowed scientists to imagine. And the whole concept of string theory, if you've ever come across it, is still basically just hypothetical. So there's a lot of theoretical, hypothetical physics merging because we don't have more keys, we don't have more clues to the universal mystery. So where we're at right now is, well, obviously 500 years ago, we discovered that Earth is not the center of everything. Before that, it was Earth being still and everything else just revolving around him. Whereas now, 500 years ago, and since then, Sun has been the center, and we've looked at everything revolving around the Sun in its own pace. And, the Sun is then speeding through the cosmos toward the black hole. Brought my props. Here we go. So we're somewhere along an arm of this beautiful galaxy. And the first miracle that we run into as we're shifting our perspective to this grand scale, which hasn't been around for more than a generation, the black hole in the center of the Milky Way galaxy was discovered, I believe, in the 70s. And that kind of gave us a clue on why are we circulating this thing, this spiral structure. But it didn't tell us how are we actually keeping on orbit of it. So it's easier when we look at the sun's perspective and we can see that the sun is bigger than the planets, and that sun, according to Einstein, will curve space and time. So it's a heavier point than all the rest, so that everything else, like marble balls, will literally curve toward it. However, something's going on with my Venus. All right, we're back on schedule. However, to imagine that something infinitely heavy is holding the point of the black hole in the center of our galaxy, and that is also, again, the numbers escape me, it's so many times larger than the sun. I will get back to that. And that we cannot really see the correlation. Like, yes, great, all of time and space is curved toward that. However, due to the velocity of everything spinning, all the stars, all the other planets in our galaxy spinning around it and around it like these pebbles, how are they not swifting off into the space? How are they actually so inclined to go there? And this is a recent discovery on the mass, even if it is great, of the black hole in the center, cannot explain and account for everything actually swirling in a galactic fashion like how does this galaxy keep its shape is the big mystery that dark matter has come to solve. So dark matter is the invisible gravitational field that is holding these spiral arms in some formation, in some form that goes around that heavy center. So all we know about it is that it has mass. It has to have mass because there's no other way to account for the weight of the whole galaxy altogether. So we know that there's something out there that responds to weight. And as we said, all objects tend to migrate toward a heavier object in these cycles, in these beautiful lines, ellipses that also have their own patterns, their own images. And I'll show you some slides on why this relates to the metaphysics. But just as a concept, that's the greatest explanation of dark matter that we have. We don't know more than that. So I made a little PowerPoint. I'll put it on. There we go. Sorry for that. And one of my biggest inspirations and reasons for looking at this stuff has been my gaze toward the outer. All my life, I've gazed toward the stars, gazed toward the universe, gazed even to the black holes as soon as I knew that they existed, as something that I wanted to be close with, that I wanted to be intimate with, that somehow I knew that the greater cosmos around us matters to me. Maybe that was because I'm a soul ambassador from another planet that's been sent here to solve something. I'm definitely not in the caliber of Einstein, but in terms of having a deep love toward these objects in our galaxy, I find it fascinating how they actually tell time and how they relate to each other. And the other notion about science that I wanted to underline is that even though we call them the laws of physics, they are not absolute laws. They are more like relativistic concepts that we've agreed upon. And the average number of tests done has pointed to the numbers that exist today for the speed of light, for the cosmological constant, which didn't end up being a constant at all. So Einstein predicted the universe expands doesn't expand, so the cosmological constant is a zero. And then only in the 90s, we discovered the universe is expanding in a great rate. So all of these laws are really also experiencing a wobble of the unknown, of the quantum coming in. And the quantum rule of thumb is that everything is always both at the same time. It is a plus and a minus. It is a 0 and a 1. It is a particle of matter, and it is also antimatter. So a lot of the study of the particles that we started to encounter in the invisible spectrum are the exact opposites of those that exist and are visible to us. So everything that we see as matter also has antimatter. And somehow there ends up being more matter than antimatter in the universe. The physics is laden with mysteries. So let's go toward the mystery school approach. This is the graph of the meditation that I asked you to do. And this is taken from the Shambhala school. So you can see there's the moon body, the earth body with its black hole center, with its ground and a base. and there's the sun. And the sun also has a black hole center that links us to the Milky Way. This is according to the Trans-Himalayan teachings nowadays channeled by Bruce Lyon. And what I've done is take the principles of these teachings and really apply the physics to that and really compare and meld and blend in the notions that science can give us. So we're still looking at the moon body as something that still archetypally hides our unconscious, our instinctual self, um, our so-called lower nature. And at the moment on earth, I feel like most of us will believe that we have a soul. So the earth self, the conscious mind, the daytime aware self is aware that he's got to hustle and survive on this planet for as long as he lives in this body and on this planet, but he will somehow also acknowledge there is a soul. Most people believe in some form of religious, spiritual belief of the soul, or in case you're a Buddhist, the no self. So the sun has been a great symbol of that for a number of eons. Even from the Egyptian times, the sun disk above one's head would be the symbol of enlightenment. So once we get there, it is the unconditioned sense of just loving, pouring service to spirit. However, even the ancient mystery schools, though they might have referred to some other deep mystery, had no concept of cosmology to include that. So the black hole in the center of the galaxy is really that addition to our cosmology, no matter what perspective we look at it from, where we utterly disappear into a black hole. So this is the mystery that our next generation is here to really solve. The scientists don't really have so many answers. So it allows us to experiment. It allows us to look for our own felt sense of experience of what that energy might feel like. We've got a reference point for the sun and the consciousness, and even the electromagnetic current that runs through that system. But we don't have a lot of language and developed sense of what it is to really connect from the sun toward the black hole. So if you're in your earth body, you can be like, this is crazy. You don't really care. However, the mind has this beautiful, infinite capacity to imagine these things happening. So, this side of the picture is a star being swallowed by the black hole. It's a depiction by an artist, but eventually, on our incarnational journey, let's say we graduate the physical body and leave to be this solar self, coming back to the source of all life and light. That is kind of the sun, the star self that we have, if you believe in incarnational selves. If you don't, you kind of skip that step, and you might think of going immediately into this disappearance, this ultimate nirvana of not existing at all. So, as far as we know, there is no escape from the black hole. Everything is pulled toward it. Its gravity is so big that there is no way to counter that. Even light gets sucked in, which is why it is called black. I'll show you this one first. So a picture of the rings of the black hole and how it might look like. You may come in contact with this later and we'll go deeper into it so you don't have to memorize it so much, but there's definitely hotness and matter slowly spiraling toward the black hole is in the accretion disk, the stuff that we still see. And then at the event horizon, where we start to disappear, all the laws of physics kind of go into a singularity, stop applying, including time. And that is one part because of the movement, and that is one part because the pull of the gravity actually just sucking us in, so that there is only one direction in space, but this has set to mean that you can go anywhere in time. So time and space swapping roles is one of the deep mysteries of the black hole. We'll talk about that a little bit more next week. This is how the Milky Way is said to look like in this moment. We're in the sun point somewhere in there, and there is something that even the black hole is emitting, which is X-rays and gamma rays, really, really high vibrational rays that we cannot really perceive with a naked eye at all. However, these are still in the spectrum of light's vibration. However, we have no idea if in addition to this, there is also emissions or any sort of interactions with dark matter. And this is what I wanted to go into next. The makeup of our universe, according to the latest calculations, is that everything that exists is 5%. Everything that we know that exists is 5% of everything. And hence, I'm taking dark matter to mean more than it is accounted for in our everyday lives. Dark energy, as you can see, is a greater portion and is responsible for the universe acceleratingly growing, expanding bigger and bigger. But because of its nature, it doesn't really interact in any other way except pushing things further away. It is literally creating vacuum and filling up these empty spaces. Its pressure is negative, so it doesn't really impose anything on anyone else. It doesn't really interact. And dark matter is this thing. It's an umbrella term, perhaps, to many things that remain the next pieces for us to discover. And we know that it interacts with matter, even with visible matter, because it has gravitation, and its effects, as I told you, in terms of the Milky Way curvature, in terms of its interactions with particles that we can see, we can say that there is such a thing. And a lot of the tests to discover that and what it is are done by trying to wait for it to interact with visible particles. So for our human bodies, all we know is that it has mass. And if we look at the potentials of how we can discover things, one of them is through electromagnetism, which has been how electrons are held in place, how our brain works, how everything in this planet is really structured around electromagnetism. And we can kind of comprehend that in terms of electric spikes and sparks, and even our thought patterns kind of move in this fashion of frictions, rubbing plus and minuses together, synapses, quick transmissions, lightning like speeds, a lot of magneticism. However, we're less aware of the force of gravity, and yet it holds us on planet Earth constantly. It holds galaxies together. It potentially holds my mass and my body in one form throughout my lifetime instead of dissolving as a puddle into space. So that's where we go into the realm of the meditation, where we really try to sense that gravitational force and the gravitational pull within our bodies. And that exploration of, we've become very aware of electromagnetic fields of energy and auras and people's interactions in that level. However, we're less aware of the gravitational fields and pulls of some people. So we're coming back into this concept and notion that human beings can also be gravitational objects. And we have mass. And to me, the fascinating bit, besides me being able to polarize and create electricity and friction with people, is to create my own weight and create my own gravitational field to which people are pulled toward. So this is one of the keys of why I want to work with something called dark matter, is to really go into the mystery of gravity and how do our bodies perceive that. And I'm bridging the notions of feeling the weight and then the notion of starting to feel the weight of the invisible. So it is said that these particles of dark matter can be coursing through us at any moment, at any time, and they interact with visible matter, but they themselves are imperceivable. So I'm using my body when I go into these states of trying to get my body to be that echo chamber. It is because I'm trying to just make that into a similar detector, like a scientific experiment of what if there is a push or a pull or a movement toward a certain direction or another. And this can happen in space, this can happen toward beings, people that I'm pulled toward, this can happen toward events that feel like they've got this certain energy of pulling, not even pulling, just like we are feeling the pull toward that. But actually, dark matter, dark energy, and black holes themselves don't do very much. They're not actively manipulating things. So they may exist perhaps in another dimension. One of the other ones, according to string theory, could be a solution to that. But I, as a astronaut of consciousness and of bodily awareness, I am trying to bridge all of these vessels together. So my consciousness doesn't leave by itself and go and explore the universe, because it would leave its main faculty of sensing gravity behind. The biggest faculty for us to actually be able to sense matter and gravitational pulls is the body. So the first marriage that happens inside us, beside the plus and the minus connecting and creating inner marriage in terms of masculine, feminine energies, the second one, I guess, is marriage of consciousness and embodied awareness. And once we don't leave our bodies when we go into meditative states, once we can stay with the physical sensations and anchor even more into that heaviness of the physical vehicle, some things may start to shift and happen, almost like impulses from within. So that's the faculty that we're developing this week, just to anchor ourselves into the body. And next week, we can delve into the mysteries of time and gravity in a more depth and look into greater forms of how these energies might express themselves through us and even in our reality as it already exists. Thank you for watching this. I hope you understood and enjoyed, and please send me any questions that you have.